This is part 2 of the Darth Vader lightsaber hilt build. We'll go into the final construction of the entire lightsaber with the exception of the magic inside. That will be build number 3. But I'll talk about how you do the best job on the grip, how you master this piece here, and getting all the alignment right. Interested? Here we go. So the masking tape did its job. A couple of places here. Let's see if it will fit on there. It's going to be an issue. Now the next piece is all these holes here. Here I've actually been practicing on the piece of scrap. This is what I actually took off. I got one of these for like $3. One of these bent tubes like this. And that's what I've made making my lightsabers out. I got about 6 of them for $3. Otherwise it'd be like about 10. This was like freehand. Here I used a template. Those are a little better. That's not bad. And that's pretty strong tubing right there. I was a little concerned that'd be too thin. Nope, pretty solid. And I just did a fit check on the inner sleeve there. Right where it's supposed to be, right where that line is. Using this drawing here and cross-referencing it with this cheap but fairly accurate version of this, I've come up with a template. This is 120 millimeters long, and all those little dots is where I'm going to drill a hole. Some of my trial and error gave me indications that if I wrap the blue tape around the area that I plan to cut, that will help me put these holes in place. So to center punch the heck out of these dots and these X's so I'll know right where to drill. Put 3 rounds of blue tape on there. Now I'm going to put this template on top. The thickness of the blue tape is about that much. The placement of these holes is pretty important to the success of the build. And I'm going to actually run it on the pipe so it doesn't slide at all when I'm making the holes. The blue tape also protects, for some reason I skid a little bit. Checked it one final time. 18 there, 18 there, so it's straight. Now I'm taking this off, putting that to the side, and then I will center punch these. I took what I'm going to use for the lightsaber blade. Eventually you'll see that part of the build. And I just ran a bunch of layers of blue tape so that it would be nice and snug fit into here. Gives the hole punch something to go up against. Now I'm just going to hit it a bunch of times and try to dent it so that I can keep the drill tracking the right direction. You can see where I kind of went off a little bit here. When I went to drill it, the drill slid or it just wasn't in the right place. Just do that a whole bunch of times for each one of these little dots and X's. Here's the setup. I drilled with the smallest drill I have, which is 1/16. Now I'm going to do a 3/32 and just very slowly and patiently open that hole so that I can use a step drill to get it to right around 5 millimeters. You really want to take your time and not rush this process because you're not going to be happy with the results if you do. Rotate the pipe. Make sure it's as close to perpendicular as you can get so that you get nice holes. In the end, I used 5 drills. This is taped off. This is a step drill at 5 millimeters because we know that all the holes here are 5 millimeters. And this is what we've come up with. I know it looks a mess. I was very careful, and now I'm going to use these small files to take out any of this additional stuff. This is kind of hard to see because it's so shiny. I'm resting this on a paper towel, and you can see where I filed down this one piece here. Maybe if I put my finger there, there you go. And now I'm working on these 2 pieces. And then what I'm doing is I'm just kind of cutting a straight line down and then filing to the sides to make sure that I don't overrun that pattern and make a nice oval out of this. Filing is done. I'm pretty happy with that. This is where the band of tape was that I used as a backdrop when I was doing the center punch. I noticed that if I can just take this down, you can see a little bit, maybe a 1/4 of an inch, 5 millimeters, that I only need to use one of these things, which I'd prefer to do. And then there's a screw that goes here. You can kind of see it here. And a screw that goes there, and that will help me hold the blade of the lightsaber in place. The chrome came off the pipe a little bit, and I just hit it with silver metallic marker. It looks like it's just a little worn, so I'm not too worried about that, and there's going to be a wire that goes across there anyway. Now I'm going to have to figure out where these wires go and what colors they are. Now we're on to this next big challenge, which is this piece right here. Originally I was going to possibly use it, and I just cut it off, but it still looks kind of chintzy. This I really need. Originally I was going to use, I think it was a tuna fish can, or maybe a chicken can. Anyway, it had a nice rim to it. Then I came up with this thought. I said, why don't we take some of these black clips, and I made a little template, and I'm cutting them out, and so that way it will be on the outside. And then I'm going to cut this piece right here off of here, and then slit it down the middle, and then I'm going to paint it black and then overlay this on top of it. This is going to look a lot more realistic than the plastic is. I'm still going to retain this because it has this nice piece that goes here. What I did is I just basically put this in a vise and bent it backwards, and then I kind of drew a template on there and cut it out with a hacksaw, one of those 2-inch black clips. So after a little bit of cutting and filing, I got this piece here, and that will go on either side. So this will be my template, and you got to make sure that you don't have the lettering. Well, I guess if you don't care about the lettering, you can certainly put it on there. And you want to get two that match. So this one has a great thing here, but for some reason it has China on that side, and I don't want China, so I'm just going to cut this one up right here using this template. Lay in your template, and then I drew a line with the silver marker all the way across here. And then that will be my cut line for this side. I might have to bend that out a little bit, and I did that here by just hammering it on a anvil for a little bit with a mallet. Here's what the two sides look like when they're done. I think it really adds a lot to the build. It's a little scratched up, worn a little bit on the edges. Originally I was going to touch that up, but maybe I'm just going to leave it. Make it look a little more authentic, like it's seen some battle. Now to make the sleeve by cutting it out of here. I have this that I cut, but I have some ridges I have to put in here. I'm going to use glued on cable ties or zip fasteners for that. This piece here, I'm using a number 10 flat washer. It's about the same size. And a silver pen cap. You can see this little detail here with a wire running through it. I'm mixed on that. I'm not sure I can make a hole small enough for that, but we may give it a shot. Cut off the end of the pen. Hopefully this will work. Yep. All right, now I'm gonna put this together. Yeah, it's a nice pressure fit. That's good. And I think I am gonna try drilling a hole, but I'm gonna drill a hole here and practice on this piece. If it works, then I'll drill the hole in there and put a little piece of wire and glue it all in place. This is a little tool I came up with. I'm probably not the first person to do it. Took a paint stirrer and just filed a wedge in here, and that allows me to hold small drills in place when I'm working on a project, and that helps keep it in place. And then once I have the hole, it's just a matter of drilling it through. Bingo. That was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Don't have wire on hand? Don't worry about it. Just get a piece of a paper clip or a small nail. I think both will work in there. Small nail, you have to get a little bigger hole, but the paper clip works perfectly. Actually, it works a little better than the other one. So I'm just going to clip that off and push this all up and glue it in place. So on the sleeve I cut, I have to be able to get it over the pipe. So I'm going to cut a line in there, which is no problem. Even if this is a little uneven, I'm going to glue these in place for that ridge and then spray paint it up. These are 4-inch cable ties, and they'll go around for 105 because right here is 15 millimeters and it's just sitting there like that. I've cut the tube. I laid this on top with the sides that I haven't fixed yet. Mounted it on there, and I've marked 2 lines. You may or may not be able to see those, but there's 2 lines there, and I'm going to run this cable tie plastic around. Scuff that up first so I can paint it. Tried all sorts of glues on this one. I actually sanded it down a bit. But the only thing I got to really stick between the cable ties and the metal is just standard, the cheap stuff, super glue. Worked great. I tried a lot of more expensive glues and it just wouldn't keep it in place. Use a little paint frosting and that will hopefully clean it up just a little bit more. Next step is to spray this with some gloss black paint, in this case Krylon. I put it in some brown paper, wrapped it up, and I've masked off the area where I'm going to adhere this, because I'm not sure the paint will help in bonding this piece with this piece. I got feedback on this that these rubber floor mats is not what they used in the build for the lightsaber, and that they used these T's for sliding doors. I got that, but I didn't like the plastic ones and I really couldn't find them. I like the rubbery grip on this. It feels good and it looks good. And unlike the T's, you can actually curve these. And this is how I made one. Cut out a pair and then you can get 2 out of this. You can get one that comes down one side, one comes down one side here. This is 5 millimeters, 5 millimeters, and another 5 millimeters in the middle. If you have little nubs on the back, you just trim them off like this. Depending on which pieces you're pulling from, you may have that. Make sure that your straight edge is tight. You use the seam of one of them right here, and you just cut straight down. Watch your fingers, because this is a sharp blade, and it will cut you. There you go. I'll get one more out of here. Again, it looks like it, but I admit it's not the shelf tees. Although it looks pretty close. And then just to get the curve on them, see there's a little nub I haven't trimmed off yet. What I did is I take some super glue. Not much at all. I used to use one without the nub. Oh, that's the nub one. And just run a real light line here. That might be too much actually. You can shake it down if you want. Doesn't take much at all. And then just pinch it together. You can use a vise or these black clips are helpful. You got to kind of work it into place though. That helps you. Put it together. Pinch it together like that. And then just hold it until it glues. It doesn't take long at all, maybe 30 seconds. And then they'll look like this. I made 6 of these, and then I made a spare because I wasn't really happy the way this one turned out. These are all relatively straight. Maybe you can see that there's a little bit of an angle here going out. So I'm probably going to just straighten that out a little bit before I glue those on. I've drilled the holes for this right here, and that's going to help stabilize the blade. I've drilled the holes for the various wires. I've made the wires. This is a little thicker red wire. This is all scavenged wires. So you can see that they have a U shape, and the reason why is because they fit better in there if you do that. Otherwise, it's a bit of a chore. And I've cut them flush so they won't interfere with the lightsaber when they get in there. I decided to use gaffer's tape because I had it, and it's kind of a matte finish, and it's really strong. Every layer I'm going to poke holes to make sure that I know where the holes are for the wires. You could use electric tape and it would be fine. The tape almost gives a composite or insulator look. So it comes in here in the sleeve, and then all the holes are marked for the wires. I'm going to put that in place. And I'm going to put a couple strips here and here. There's a little bit more play than I want. The screws are going to hold the blade in place and everything else. It's really starting to come together now. You can see where the flashlight is, so the blade will go in right flush with the flashlight. These are in place. The screws are going to work great. Now I just need to put the wires in next. Progress being made. Got the wires done. This is all in place. All right, so now we have this little area here because I've adjusted this connector. So I'm going to have to go in there and color that up. Now you could use paint. I'm just going to use a Sharpie marker because it's in deep into the build, and unless somebody is really expecting it or you're going to show it to them, odds are they're not going to see it. So take that off. I'm going to marker this up here, a little bit of that maybe, and then in here where the gray tube is. This little piece here, I think in the actual lightsaber adjusts the length of the lightsaber. It's a perfect example of using actual hardware and how it really ups the game of the lightsaber. Kind of like this, where I took the plastic piece that came, the kind of low budget lightsaber, and ramped it up by putting some hardware on it. And it is a curled nut 1032. Couple thoughts here. I've done all sorts of research on the web because when you make something, you want to make it as authentic as possible. The lightsabers for the first three original movies, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, are all subtly different. They didn't help us out at all by using the same lightsaber. And the seam for these guys is sometimes aligned with this and with this on the bottom. Sometimes this is not aligned. And in fact, in this model, I just realized it's offset. And I thought originally, in the sketch that I've been using, I didn't realize this till like 20 minutes ago. The sketch, this is lining up directly with this thing. So if you can imagine, this is lined up right here like that. You're right or you're wrong, depending on who you talk to. I checked online as best as I could. I looked, and I think I verified that the original authentic ones were lined up like this. So that's what I'm going with. And that's the hardest part right now, is finalizing the location of the grip and these guys. You're kind of committed, and this is consistent here with the wiring, with the top of the fixture. I'm going to do this 180 out. As it is here, please post in the comments whether I messed it up or not, depending on your perspective. Always welcome your inputs. But you gotta finalize the build. Next thing you gotta think about is assembly. Once you put those grips in place, they are in place. This piece at the top is already in place. What I think I'm going to do is slide this piece, which I currently have here because I'm just doing a fit check, onto here, and then I'll put the grips on and then rotate this into position. When you're going to put your first grip on, and I did the top, but as I was buttering up the grip, I realized you probably should start at the bottom, the one you're not going to see so much. This is the top of the lightsaber. And you can see that my register lines, I couldn't see them. And I was also concerned I didn't get this just right on the bottom, so as I was gluing it, I shifted it around a little bit to make sure that this cap would go on. You should probably extend the line up here a little bit more. Also, I noticed I smeared a little bit of the glue here, and if you hit it pretty quickly with some Goo Gone, you'll get that glue off. I think you can use nail polish too. I'm a little concerned about using nail polish on the chrome. When you build anything, no matter who you are, typically you're going to remember all the little situations and compromises you did. But when you show this to somebody and hand it to them, they're not going to see that, as long as it's not real blatant. Because I want to make sure that the cap is on there right, I re-registered the marks onto a piece of Scotch tape that I taped onto the cap, and that will help me align with the extensions over here to get those grips right. I'm using old cable tie as a spreader, and I'm just putting a real thin coat on there all the way around. I want to make sure that all of the bottom is covered, but it's important just to do a real thin coat. If it's too much, it's going to squeeze out of the bottom. If it's too little, it won't glue. Arguably, the most stressful part of the build is over. If you talk to any prop builder, there's always sacrifices made. But I'm pretty happy with this. So I'm going to pull the tape off that I had the register marks on. Hopefully there's no marks on there. If there is, you can just use a little Goo Gone. And I took the register marks out with some Goo Gone around here. Now I'm just going to put this in place, glue it down, and put this in place. And the build is done, except for the blade. What I did is just took a couple drops of Rapid Fuse, not much at all, lifted the band up and slid it in place, and then just pushed it down on there. Looks pretty good. The last step is just putting this box on. I tried super glue with not much success, so I went back to another old standby, E6000, and this happens to be the black version. You have to hold it on there for a couple minutes, and then it gets to full strength in 72 hours, but it's been about 24 hours and it's locked in there. Pretty solid. It can also be used almost as a caulk on the sides to really kind of blend that in so you can't even tell it's two pieces. Thumbs up and comments, always appreciated. Thanks for watching. I'm going to end video number 2 there. The only thing remaining is what's inside. A light system and sound and vibrations, as well as putting on a blade, which really makes this lightsaber complete. Stay tuned for that video coming soon, or it's posted down below.